At the beginning of the movie, a girl named Annie Braddock argues that the upbringing of children in different countries has always had its differences. The heroine believes that the strangest customs rightfully belong to the rich residents of Manhattan. Men are removed from their wives after the birth of children, and women in turn continue to take care of themselves and their needs. The upbringing of children is transferred to the shoulders of nannies. The heroine graduates from university and has dinner with her mother at a cafe. Judy Braddock gives her daughter a business suit and dreams that the girl will become a successful economist. However, Annie does not like this idea at all. However, as well as her specialty. In the subway, the heroine meets her friend. Lynette is surprised by Annie's strict appearance and advises her not to push herself into limits, as no representatives of civilization have done so. During the interview, the heroine realizes that it is difficult for her to answer the question about who she is. Wandering the streets, Annie studies the women passing by, trying to try on their style and lifestyle. Sitting in the Central Park, the heroine observes a poor woman and realizes that this is her destiny. Suddenly, Annie notices a little boy being carried on a scooter by a sloppy guy. Without thinking, the heroine rushes to the aid of the child and prevents a catastrophe. The boy introduces himself as Grayer, and soon his mother, Mrs. H, appears. The woman assumes that Annie is babysitting because she got along well with her son and offers her her card to work with her in the future. When Mrs. X leaves, the heroine is flanked by other well-to-do mothers eager to find a good nanny for their children. Annie decides to try a new path after all and hopes that she will be able to figure out a new job. The heroine dreams that she flies up above the financier's office on a red umbrella and rushes towards a new destiny. Unlike the other mothers, Mrs. X holds the meeting not in her home, but in a rather expensive restaurant. The woman condescends to Annie's decision to eat a hamburger and asks the waiter to bring something more refined. Mrs. X turns out to be very friendly and enjoys asking the heroine about her, and then tells her about herself. After lunch, Annie drives home and begins to pack her things. Lynette criticizes her friend for her decision to serve someone. The heroine does not tell her mother the truth about her departure and the nature of her work. Annie meets the housekeeper Maria, who does not look very welcoming, and warns her that no one stays in this house for long. The heroine reads a note from Mrs. X and notices that she is now just a nanny to her. Rule number 1 states that Grayer, and generally everyone but Mary, must not enter the bedroom. Rule number 2 forbids the boy from sleeping during the day, as Mrs. X is worried that it will upset his sleep schedule. The rest of the rules also make rather harsh demands on Grayer and the nanny herself. Mrs. X criticizes the heroine for taking a bath in an inappropriate place. Annie's room turns out to be very small and is next to the laundry room. The heroine comes to get Grayer and realizes that Mrs. X likes to send her everywhere in advance. The boy is not happy to see Annie and tries to get away from her. Grayer says he loves Birdie, the nanny who worked before the heroine. The heroine manages to get the boy home, but he locks the lock from inside the house. Annie meets a guy from Harvard, but remembers that under the terms of the contract she is not allowed to have close relations with men. The guy manages to negotiate with Grayer, and he lets the heroine into the house. Annie really likes the new acquaintance, but she tries to forget about it, and find a way to the heart of her young ward child. After a couple of weeks, the heroine begins to get tired of her duties, but she is not going to give up yet. Anne's conversation with her mother is interrupted by the unexpected appearance of Mrs. X with a new batch of tasks. Soon, the heroine meets other nannies working for rich children. Bridget tells her that there are 3 types of this job. A is when you fill in for mom a couple times a week. B is when you help out during the day, but every day. And C is when you're a full-time substitute parent for the entire week. While preparing another meal using an old-fashioned recipe, Annie drops the food on the floor. The heroine offers Grayer to eat some sweets, which he is always forbidden to take. Annie suggests that the boy become friends instead of ruining each other's lives and moods. The heroine finally meets Mr. X, but the man won't even spend a couple of minutes with his son. Annie comforts the boy and becomes kinder to him. Before going to bed, Grayer asks the heroine not to abandon him like the past nanny. The parents do not pay attention to the boy, and Annie goes home to get his card. Her outfit is good-naturedly teased by a Harvard guy. At the event, Grayer asks to use the restroom, causing Annie to accidentally learn that Mr. X is secretly cheating on his wife. Mrs. X approaches the office, and the heroine tries to warn the man, The woman learns from an acquaintance that Greer was not accepted to an elite school. In the evening, Mrs. X quarrels with her husband, realizing that the man is cheating on her, but the husband simply walks away from the dialogue. Soon, Greer confesses to the heroine that she is his most favorite nanny. Annie admits that she loves the boy too, and realizes that it will be much harder to leave this job now. The next day, Mrs. X feels terrible about her husband's departure, and asks the heroine to take her son to the museum. Annie chooses to break the rules a bit, however, and brings Greer to her favorite place. The heroes eat popsicles together, ride the subway, and break many of the rules Mrs. X has specified. The woman ignores Annie's plans and reminds her that they need to attend a seminar. The mothers actively report complaints to their nannies, but the latter prefer to keep silent for fear of losing their jobs. Annie tells about how she lost her day off, after which Mrs. X still lets her go for the evening. At the bar, the heroine talks to Lynette and does not understand how a rich and unencumbered woman can be so unhappy. In the institution, Annie notices a guy from Harvard and wants to leave. However, Lynette ignores her requests and reminds her of her duty to her work. The guy's friends start making fun of Annie and her occupation. The heroine gets angry and goes home. She gets a message on her phone, and it's a guy from Harvard offering to redeem himself by inviting Annie to dinner. And he's not ready to hear anything but yes. Judy is going to visit her daughter, so the heroine comes to Lynette and asks her to pretend they live here together. In time for dinner, Annie gets a call from Mrs. X and informs her that tomorrow is Greer's birthday party. Annie is surprised because the boy's party is not due for another month. Then the woman clarifies that Mr. X is coming home from Chicago, so she wants to have a small family party. Mrs. X says that Annie received flowers, and the girl lies that she got them from her grandfather, since having a relationship is strictly forbidden to her. During the party, Greer is sad, and Mr. X fights with his wife about his son not being accepted to an elite school. Mrs. X shifts the responsibility to Annie, who managed to agree to a date with a guy from Harvard. To improve the heroine's work, the woman decides to hire a French language consultant. After communicating with him, Annie hurries to the date. However, all restaurants are already closed. The couple has dinner on the street and talks about the girl's work. Annie is sure that the guy from Harvard has lived a magical life, and therefore it is difficult for him to imagine what it means to be forever busy, not doing what one really wants to do. In response, the guy says that he lost his mom early, so he was raised by 9 nannies and then a boarding school. Annie admits that she cannot leave her job because of the boy, to whom she is strongly attached. After a walk, the heroine cannot resist and decides to spend the night together with the guy from Harvard in his apartment. The next day, Annie remembered that anthropologists often merge with the peoples they study, and after all, the same thing happened to her. So the heroine decided to have a conversation with Mrs. X. While helping the woman pack, Annie realizes she can't discuss this in front of Greer. Mrs. X is preparing for an anniversary celebration and doesn't understand why her spouse hasn't come to pick her up yet. Mr. X calls to say that his flight has been canceled, although the airport has no such information. The distraught woman decides to leave for a few days, despite Greer's pleas to stay. The boy is running a high fever, and Annie sits by his side, trying to do something to help. The heroine calls Lynette and asks if she knows a nurse. The friend suggests asking Judy for help, but that means having to tell the woman the truth. Annie makes the decision to call her mom to help Greer deal with his illness. Judy reacts acutely to her daughter's deception, but their conversation is interrupted by the appearance of Mrs. X, who has reconciled with her husband. The Harvard guy suggests that Annie take her mind off everything and go away with him to her father's house for a month. However, the heroine does not give her consent, as she hopes that the vacation to which the X family is going will help save their marriage, and she definitely needs to be there with Greer. However, in reality, things do not turn out so smoothly. Mr. X is about to leave in a couple of days, as he has business to attend to in Chicago. His mother suddenly appears on the beach, and Mrs. X informs him that they will have another child. The man makes a scandal, believing that it is practically impossible. During a party a few days later, Annie accidentally overhears that Mrs. X wants to install a camera to follow the nanny and soon say goodbye to her. That evening on the beach, the heroine tries to explain to Greer that she can't always be his nanny, but it won't change her love for him. The next day, Mr. X makes explicit hints to Annie, after which the girl runs away, leaving him alone with his wife. When the heroine returns, Mrs. X fires her for having an affair with a guy from Harvard. Annie tries to talk to the woman, but it only leads to an argument. The heroine tries to leave unnoticed, but Grayer notices her. In addition, Mr. X slips Annie a puppy, which he gave to his son. The upset girl tries not to remember Grayer's face, and in the envelope, instead of the calculation, she finds only a few dollars. Annie decides to avenge herself and the boy. The heroine finds a video camera in a teddy bear and expresses everything she has in her heart. Soon, Mrs. X decides to show the footage from the video camera at her meeting. However, Annie says some things that shock those present. It turns out that Mrs. X was never a perfect mother and only thought of herself. At the end, Annie gives a touching speech about Grayer and asks his parents not to forget about him and not to treat the boy as an accessory. Meanwhile, back in reality, Judy finally accepts her daughter's wish not to be a financier and wishes her luck in whatever endeavors she pursues. Annie continues to study anthropology and meets a guy from Harvard, whose name is Hayden. Mrs. X sends the heroine a letter where she tells her that she left her husband, and thanks to that speech, she finally became engaged in her son and fell in love with him. Annie realizes that thanks to Grayer, she has finally realized who she is and what she wants to do in life. The heroine hopes that the boy will also be happy together with his mother. This is the end of the movie. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this movie, and see you in new videos.